Hi guys! So today I'm going to show you a neat trick with props and how to edit the center point. Why on earth would you want to do that? Well, everyone that knows my stuff knows that if I have a weapon in a set, poses aren't automatic. So whenever you encounter a weapon in my set, there's always going to be poses. And in order to make those poses go a little bit easier, I tend to edit my center points of my props. There's a good reason for this, which I'm going to explain in this riveting video. So I'm going to use Deathstrike as the example here, which is already obviously done. It's in the store, so. But I'm just going to use it just to show you guys how to import it and set it up and do it in the right like order so that it's easiest for you. And this is something that I have just learned through trial and error because I don't like it when I can't pose a prop right and it gives me a hard time. And if you don't do it the right way, it will give you a hard time because the center point needs to be in a certain way in order for it to be perfectest. Okay, so here you can see I have a naked man in my scene. Ah, naked man. So I'm going to just pose him right now. Um, this doesn't have to be exact, by the way. You can use any pose here. You just want the arms to be straight. So I'm gonna do 50 degrees. Uh, it would help if you picked the right joint. Oh my God. So you want it in a T position, and this is because it keeps the hands relatively straight instead of the A position, which puts them down at an angle. Um, this will make it much easier to get the prop in his hands, and you also want to twist it. This is how I do my setup. And you're also going to need a hand. So I already have hands done for this. And even though these are basic hands that I do, but the poses often have like a different hand depending on what the pose is. I change it. So these are just like basic hands that, will get you kind of going. So I'm going to go ahead and import my Great Axe, which is the axe that came with Deathstrike, the male version. And I'm going to select it and I'm going to click this. What this will do is it'll bring up the arrow um, translation tool, I guess it would be called. Um, it's a lot easier for me, at least, to use this instead of using dials. I hate using dials, and they're just, I don't know, they're just not as intuitive to me. So, I just use the translation tool to kind of get it in his hand. So, you just do this number, move it until you get it in his hand perfectly. Oops. And these little arrows are sometimes hard to select, so you might have a lot of that going on. And I can see that this hand probably goes outside of limits, so I'm gonna just tweak it so that it's in his hand right. And you can always obviously tweak the pose later on. It doesn't necessarily matter too much for this. Now we have it in his hand. And most people would jump to, hey, I need to parent it now. But no, actually, you don't. What you want to do first is click this bone button, which is the joint editor tool. Now, even though this is a prop, it still has a center point. So while it won't have a joint order per se, which is usually what like a figure would have, this does have a center point and an end point, which the end point is the red point and the center point is here. Now, if I were to pose this right now, it spins pretty decently. You see how, it stays relative to his hand. It's a little bit wobbly, probably not dead of center. But if I were to do this, look at how annoying that is because it's not staying close to his hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this center point so that now it stays relative to his hand. And I tend to do this differently depending on the prop. So if it's like an axe or a sword or something, I tend to put the center point the center of the handle. Now, if this was an arrow, I would actually put it on the end down here where the fletching is. I actually usually build a nock into my arrow behind the fletching. So that's usually where I will put the center point on an arrow. But just to explain that it changes depending on what the prop is, what the weapon is, and so forth, where you want to keep that relative. Okay, so now you can see the center point is there. It's still a little wobbly, and you can play with that because, like, maybe, I just need to move it a hair this way. Actually, I think it might be on X. Or that's Z. What am I saying? That's not X. And see, that's much better, right? So now that you have your sensor point, you want to hit memorize selected node rigging. And now you can click the right thing and change the parent. So we're going to go up here to find his stupid hand in this big ass list. Left hand. If you're using Genesis 9, you want to use the left hand anchor instead. I'm using Genesis 8 here, but just of note that the anchor is actually going to work more superiorly to the left hand itself. And the reason why is because the anchor is kind of like a ghost bone, so that when you apply morphs and so forth, it actually works a lot better than using the hand itself because you might have like proportion issues and such. So, okay, so let's just check and make sure it is parented. Yay! And when you go to pose it, it changes. But look, you see what I'm saying? It stays relative to the hand, and while it may not see, it's still like it twists right on a dime, and this is much easier to deal with, than the way that it was, because, obviously, I screwed it up. But it's much like, see, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. When you parent it, it changes the translation and the rotational values of the prop itself. Hi, Blackie. You want to come up? Come on. You can come up. There you go. I have a new desk kitty. She loves my desk and she loves the window. Anyway, so when you parent a prop, it automatically, even if it's zeroed, it automatically changes the translational and rotational values. Why? I couldn't actually tell you, probably because it's relative to the hand now and not necessarily to the 0 point. But I mean, that's just a guess. It's not like necessarily an exacting definition, but whatever. You know what? It's whatever. Anyway, so yeah, you want to do like all of that before you parent it because like I said, it'll change, and CZ does not work well at all. But the important thing is that you'll have two axes that will work. And you can usually get your pose. Because like I said, I have some poses, let's see, that hold them in such a way that it's kind of like slanted in a hand. And this is not that prop. I guess I would have to like basically show you with the actual props because this is different. Hello. Thank you. Yeah, you have to select Genesis before you load those. Anyway, you can see that my hand changes. So you see how like he's holding it a certain way. which is very different than like if he was holding it upright. You see what I'm saying? Like sometimes my hand is a little bit more open versus more of a grip like here. So, yeah, this and to, in order to do this, you want to be able to like keep that center position pretty close to the hand. Otherwise, it gets really like nasty, like hard to deal with and so forth. So, that's pretty much all there is to it. And then, like, of course, once you've edited your center point and you've got it all set up with the parent and so forth, then you want to save it. And, oops, man, you can actually, when you're still in that T pose, you can just easily scooch that right over to the right hand and then set that one up as a right parent as well. So, um, I obviously veered away from that, but just to point that out, when you're in a T pose and you have both arms posed in exactly the same way, you can just scooch the prop right on over to the right hand from the left and then just change the parent. You've already got your center point done at that point. Like once you save the left hand, then you can just make the right from it. So that's pretty simple, and that's all there is to it. And so that'll make it much easier for you guys to pose. And that's it.